Let me say, I think God has blessed us. He's blessed the Republican Party with some very good candidates. The Democrats can't even find one.
Oof, here we go. I just spent the last 2 hours watching the first Republican debates, so you don't have to. What follows are some highlights, or rather, lowlights. You'll notice that they don't include the frontrunner, who I plan on ignoring until he goes away.
And I believe God has blessed our country. This country's been extraordinarily blessed, and we have honored that blessing, and that's why God has continued to bless us. And He's blessed us with young men and women willing to risk.
For starters, let's get a couple of preliminaries out of the way. Somebody in the Facebook marketing department should be fired.
Welcome back to Fox News Facebook Republican Debate Night. We're going to continue the questions now on illegal immigration.
I don't see how being this aggressively and continuously paired with the Fox News brand and the minds of the viewing public benefits Facebook at all. Unless they really want to get at that lucrative lunatics aged 55 to 85 demographic. We all know that Fox News is the marketing wing of the Republican Party, but I was shocked at how blatant it was. It had everything I expected. Non-sequitur pitches for other Republican products.
I bet these guys are glad that Carly Fiorina did not appear in the 9 p.m. hour because, boy, she unleashed a can, if you know what I'm saying, earlier.
Selling points presented in weird infomercial-style graphics. White people with scarily white teeth. Old people saying hilarious old people things.
All of the cameramen are taking their pictures. This is the picture you'll see on the front page of the papers tomorrow.
What surprised me was this.
Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise...
The first question of the debate was an attempt to embarrass the frontrunner, who shall not be named, for failing to follow Republican orthodoxy. It's as if the Republican National Committee wrote the script. It's amazing that they can claim this is journalism. So let's run through the people whose names you shouldn't bother remembering.
We need a significantly changed taxation system. And the one that I've advocated is based on tithing, because I think God's a pretty fair guy.
I really enjoyed this cycle's black Republican, neurosurgeon Ben Carson. He may actually be insane.
What we do in order to get the information that we need is our business. And I wouldn't necessarily be broadcasting to everybody what we're going to do. You know, We've gotten into this mindset of fighting politically correct wars. There is no such thing as a politically correct war. And the left, of course, will say Carson doesn't believe in the Geneva Convention. Carson doesn't believe in fighting stupid wars.
I'm pretty sure he's advocating war crimes here. Nobody's taking him too seriously, though, thank God. Next, we've got New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He's vaguely interesting, but he's already mired in scandal, which hurts him, and he's an East Coast Republican, which makes his candidacy a complete waste of time. Then you've got Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He's got Fox News on his side, plus millions of dollars of oil money. I'm not kidding about the Fox News favoritism. He received the single most softball question I have ever heard, anywhere.
Betancourt sent this question. Will you support Kate Steinle's law, which would impose a mandatory 5-year prison term for an illegal who's deported and then returns to this country? And will you defund sanctuary cities for violating federal law?
Chris, absolutely yes. And not only will I support it, I have authored Kate's law in the United States Senate and filed that legislation.
Amazing. But Fox News and all the money in the world can't make up for the fact that he looks like a used car salesman and sounds like a televangelist. Not gonna happen. Then there's former Arizona Governor Mike Huckabee, preaching that old-time religion.
It's time that we recognize the Supreme Court is not the supreme being, and we change the policy to be pro-life and protect children instead of rip up their body parts and sell them like they're parts to a Buick.
This sort of thing may appeal to some, but it's worth pointing out to pro-lifers that his last big cause was fighting gay marriage, and that hasn't gone so well. Next, let's move on to people who actually have a chance. I haven't been shy about the fact that I like Rand Paul. I've never voted for a Republican or a Democrat, but he makes me kind of major party curious, if you will. He and Chris Christie engaged in the only actual debate of the evening, all of which I'll present here.
Do you really believe you can assign blame to Senator Paul just for opposing the bulk collection of people's phone records in the event of a terrorist attack?
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm the only person on this stage who's actually filed applications under the Patriot Act, who have gone before the the Foreign Intelligence Service Court, who has prosecuted and investigated and jailed terrorists in this country after September 11th. I was appointed U.S. Attorney by President Bush on September 10th, 2001, and the world changed enormously the next day. And it happened in my state. This is not theoretical to me. I went to the funerals. We lost friends of ours in the Trade Center that day. My own wife was 2 blocks from the Trade Center that day at her office, having gone through it that morning. When you actually have to be responsible for doing this, you can do it, and we did it for 7 years in my office, respecting civil liberties and protecting the homeland. And I will make no apologies ever for protecting the lives and the safety of the American people. We have to give more tools to our folks to be able to do that, not fewer, and then trust those people and oversee them to do it the right way. As president, that is exactly what I'll do.
Megan, may I respond? May I respond?
Go ahead, sir.
I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from innocent Americans. The Fourth Amendment was what we fought the revolution over. John Adams said it was the spark that led to our war for independence. And I'm proud of standing for the Bill of Rights, and I will continue to stand for the Bill of Rights.
And Megan, that's a completely ridiculous answer. I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megan?
Use the Fourth Amendment.
How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll tell you how you
Get a warrant.
Let me tell you something.
Get a judge to sign a warrant.
Senator.
Go ahead, wait, Governor Christie, make your point.
Listen, Senator, when you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that. When you're responsible for protecting the lives of the American people, then what you need to do is to make sure that you use the system the way it's supposed to work.
Here's the problem, Governor. You fundamentally misunderstand the Bill of Rights. Every time you did a case, you got a warrant from a judge. I'm talking about searches without warrants, indiscriminately of all Americans' records, and that's what I fought to end. I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
And Senator Paul, the hugs that I remember are the hugs that I gave to the families who lost their people on September 11th. Those are the hugs I remember, and those had nothing to do with politics, unlike what you're doing by cutting speeches on the floor of the Senate, then putting them on the internet within a half an hour to raise money for your campaign, and while still putting our country at risk.
All right, we're going to cut it off there.
Is Christie actually slamming Paul for trying to get the public interested in Senate debates here? Whatever. This is what this debate was supposed to be. Paul the heretic versus everybody else, before the candidate who shall not be named stole everybody's thunder. It could have been great. Paul probably doesn't have much of a chance at the nomination, which is a shame. Next, let's look at frontrunner Bush, who kind of embarrassed himself.
So do you understand the real concern in this country about dynastic politics?
Absolutely, I do. And I'm going to run hard, run with heart, and run to win. I'm going to have to earn this. Maybe the bar is even higher for me. That's fine.
I'm sorry, but that's beyond ridiculous. Bush was born to wealth and politics, and has automatic frontrunner status, despite never really distinguishing himself.
How do you look at them now and say your brother's war was a mistake?
Knowing what we know now, with faulty intelligence and not having security be the first priority when we invaded, it was a mistake. I wouldn't have gone in. However, for the people that did lose their lives and the families that suffered because of it, I know this full well, because as governor of the state of Florida, I called every one of them. every one of them that I could find, to tell them that I was praying for them, that I cared about them, and it was really hard to do. And every one of them said that their child did not die in vain, or their wife or husband did not die in vain. And so why it was difficult for me to do it was based on that.
Ugh. I think this guy is only a bit more articulate than his brother, and he's got none of W's folksy charm. But he's got money, and he's the right kind of boring. Still the most likely nominee. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker also still seems to be doing well. He describes himself this way.
I'm a guy with a wife and 2 kids and a Harley. One article called me aggressively normal. I ran for governor because I was worried about my kids' future.
Unfortunately, his take on foreign policy strikes me as aggressively dumb.
Governor Walker, you've said that you would tear up the Iran deal on day one. If this deal is undone, what then?
Well, first off, let's remember, I still remember as a kid tying a yellow ribbon around the tree in front of my house during the 444 days that Iran held 52 Americans hostage. Iran is not a place we should be doing business with. To me, you terminate the deal on day one, you reinstate the sanctions authorized by Congress, you go to Congress and put in place even more crippling sanctions in place, and then you convince our allies to do the same. This is not just bad with Iran, this is bad with ISIS. It is tied together, and once and for all, we need a leader who's going to stand up and do something about it.
He seems to think that the Iran deal helps ISIS, one of Iran's biggest enemies, which is hard to understand. There were really only 2 candidates who did well yesterday. The first was Ohio Governor John Kasich. He kept saying things like this.
The nominee of this party, if they're going to win, has got to come at it in a big way, which is pro-growth.
And this.
I had an opportunity to bring resources back to Ohio to do what? To treat the mentally ill. 10,000 of them sit in our prisons. It costs $22,500 a year to keep them in prison. I'd rather get them their medication so they could lead a decent life. Secondly, we are rehabbing the drug addicted. 80% of the people in our prisons have addiction problems. We now treat them in the prisons, release them in the community, and the recidivism rate is 10%, and everybody across this country knows that the tsunami of drugs is threatening their very families. So we're treating them and getting them on their feet. And finally, the working poor, instead of them having come into the emergency rooms where it costs more, where they're sicker, and we end up paying, we brought a program in here to make sure that people could get on their feet.
What is he thinking, talking about real issues and being positive? Doesn't he know he's on Fox News? I don't think he's got much of a chance, but he and Paul were the only people I've found to be legitimately worth listening to. Unfortunately, I think the winner of the debate was probably the very well-prepared Florida Senator Marco Rubio. He said nothing interesting or new, but he said it really, really well.
You know, both of my parents were born into poor families on the island of Cuba. They came to America because it was the only place where people like them could have a chance. Here in this country, they never made it big, but the very purpose of their life was to give us the chance to do all the things they never could. My father was a bartender, and the journey from the back of that bar to this stage tonight, to me, that's the essence of the American dream. It's what makes our nation different. And I'm running for president because I want that to still be possible for the people trying to do that now. I run for president because I believe that we can't just save the American dream, we can expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before.
This is the Republican Party's fantasy of itself, well expressed. It's nothing but a fantasy, of course. Rubio's program promises nothing but more of the same, from kowtowing to bankers to a larger defense budget. But by virtue of youth and biography, he is marginally more interesting than the rest of these jokers. So Marco Rubio wins, or is first loser, whatever. I don't want to leave on a down note, though. Republican debates are usually a cesspool of outmoded and occasionally frightening ideas and approaches, and this one was no exception. The last half hour in particular was a sea of Jesus freakery and abortion fear-mongering. But there were 2 sound bites, one of which got massive applause that showed how far we have come as a country.
Believe that overly aggressive police officers targeting young African Americans is the civil rights issue of our time. Do you agree? And if so, how do you plan to address it? If not, why not?
Well, I think the most important thing we can do when it comes to policing is something you've had a guest on who's a friend of mine, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, who's talked to me many times about this in the past. It's about training. It's about making sure that law enforcement professionals, not only on the way in to their positions, but all the way through their time, have the proper training, particularly when it comes to use of force, and that we protect and stand up and support those men and women who are doing their jobs in law enforcement. And for the very few that don't, that there are consequences to show that we treat everyone the same here in America.
Thank you.
Did you catch that? No mention of black-on-black crime, no drug war bullshit, no talk about thugs. There must have been some, but I didn't notice any hidden race talk anywhere in this debate. That's extraordinary, and is a very new thing for the Republicans. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here. I'll leave you with the hyper-conservative governor of Ohio's extraordinary comment on gay marriage.
If you had a son or daughter who was gay or lesbian, how would you explain to them your opposition to same-sex marriage?
Well, look, I'm an old-fashioned person here, and I happen to believe in traditional marriage. But I've also said the court has ruled.
But how would you explain to your child?
Megan, the court has ruled, and I said we'll accept it. And guess what? I just went to a wedding of a friend of mine who happens to be gay. Because somebody doesn't think the way I do, doesn't mean that I can't care about them or I can't love them. So if one of my daughters happened to be that, of course I would love them and I would accept them, because you know what? That's what we're taught when we have strong faith. So issues like that are planted to divide us. I think the simple fact of the matter is, and this is where I would agree with Jeb, and I've been saying it all along, we need to give everybody a chance, treat everybody with respect, and let them share in this great American dream that we have, Megan. So, look, I'm going to love my daughters. I'm going to love them no matter what they do, because you know what? God gives me unconditional love. I'm going to give it to my family and my friends and the people around me.